welcome to Taking It to the Streets. I'm your host, Andy Goldman from sunny St. Pete, Florida. This is the show where we take it to the streets, knowing if we don't, the streets will take it to us.
Welcome to Taking It to the Streets. It's Andy Goldman, another episode. Here we go. www.brightwoodmedical.com brings us this episode. Your leader in refurbished medical equipment. 773-848-7100. www.brightwoodmedical.com. Catch us with past drops that we've made for Taking It to the Streets. We dropped the one on Kevin Cook recently, the writer, esteemed writer from Sports Illustrated, Golf Magazine. He did that incredible book about Titanic Thompson. Of course, our weekly segment with the great Rich Beam, where we break down all the different golf tournaments. Rich is a total character, but with no delay. This particular one is straight from the heart because my old buddy sits with me on this one, Pete Jones. And it's almost weird, Pete, giving a backstory on you because he's a true friend. Pete and I went to college together. You guys have heard me talk about my days at Missouri, how much I love going to school at Missouri, all the great, the highs, the lows, the fifth down game, the things that I've taken you along the ride with. Here's a guy that can basically the same exact time as me, 88 to 92, we were there. And it was a great era, but yet a bit of a controversial era, a little bit of a sad era. I'm specifically, Pete, talking about the sports era atmosphere when we were there. A little bit of, and now looking back at it, I mean this with all sincerity, I look back and how do you look back on it? I mean, is there sadness when you think about how we didn't reach the heights we should have on the Norm Stewart basketball team? We had some incredible basketball teams that get out of their own way. The fifth down game, I mean, there's some stuff that happened on our watch. It's pretty tough.
Yeah, I mean, the Mizzou football, personally, I'm not frustrated, but we didn't have the same, feeling that people that went to Michigan, Ohio State, we weren't a football school. And so our football Saturdays just weren't the same. But hoops with Doug Smith and Anthony Peeler, I mean, you remember we were number one. Oklahoma was number one. That was back in the Big Eight. And those games were unreal. I mean, when was it that Tyus Edney went coast to coast on us? Was that our freshman year? Something?
I think it's our junior year.
Okay, yeah, I couldn't remember. But, that was heartbreaking. Yeah. It's just, you know what, though? Growing up, in Deerfield, Chicago suburb, I'm used to heartbreak with DePaul. I grew up a huge DePaul fan, and I mean, those were some of the worst losses ever. Then I go to Mizzou, and I'm like, please, I've been through this before.
Right. Okay, so Pete, a little of the backstory before we get into what you did after Mizzou. So you at Mizzou, you're an aspiring journalist. You go there. You take the first 2 years, you did something that I couldn't do, which was get through the prerequisite courses at Mizzou to get into J school, which were brutal. I found them boring. I didn't make it to the Missouri Mafia as you guys are known. And you obviously did Don Ranley, News 101. I mean, that was a weed out course for me.
Oh yeah.
I found it so difficult to get through. So walk me through, you become a Mizzou J school. Did you then want to aspire to be in the media, or was it something where now what? Next what?
You know what? I just I wasn't good enough to play sports in college. And to me, it was really just that people get paid to go to sporting events, and cover sporting events. Like, to me, that was the dream. It was an incredible job being Bob Costas. And then I actually, for the first time in my life, I worked hard my freshman, sophomore year to make sure that I had the GPA to get into Mizzou's journalism school, which I don't know my kids nowadays, you get directly into the school. Back then you didn't get into your
junior. You're looking at them. Yeah, you can get weeded out. Those were tough classes.
Oh yeah, no, they were tough. And it's probably the last time I worked my butt off, freshman, sophomore year. And then junior year, I was at KOMU TV, and the thing about that was it was doing news, and I look back at it now. Nowadays, I look at the media, and it's so much, left and right. If you're left, you're going to MSNBC. You're right, you're going to Fox, so on and so forth. Back then, it was more about what do I got to do to get in the A block, which is the first set of stories, the lead stories,
Right.
as opposed to the B block. It was more about when I was doing news, I was finding that I might sensationalize a story a little bit more than what was there to try to get myself under the A block, which makes me not a good journalist. And back then, they were hammering us about being a good journalist, understand your bias, and get over it and just tell the story. And I started realizing I hope I can get over to sports because I'm not news is, you know, you can't trust me as a journalist.
Well, so obviously you're fictionalizing a little bit just on your own bent. That's who you are. And you're getting scolded for it by the academics at Mizzou who want you to play it straight and want you to write the straight skinny on whatever the current event of the day was. Totally understand. Again, this is 1990. So
Right.
it's not, there's no such thing as the internet at this time. There's no such thing as social media. They
Right.
really do want you to be as close to the true story with no editorializing as part of it. No op-ed, no anything. Now that takes me to where we're going.
Yeah.
So folks, if you remember in the late 90s, there was a fledgling, incredible project that was jump-started by Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Chris Moore, I believe was their sidekick guy that was the one who was producing it. And it was called Project Greenlight. And basically, from my understanding and memory of it, is about year 2000. And those three guys were going to bankroll a fledgling writer's movie, a fledgling director, and let them have the experience and get their foot seriously in the door in Hollywood to get a movie done. Because getting a movie done requires so much capital and so many contacts that they can obviously make that happen. Pete here wins Project Greenlight. Okay. So walk us back.
Yeah.
Are you any part of you a filmmaker? When I knew you at Mizzou, are you secretly putting together scripts that I didn't really know about? Or was it just, hey, I'm kind of fictionalizing the news and that points to creative writing and filmmaking?
Yeah, I mean, back then, we were just pretty much drinking and having fun. I
Right.
didn't have,
That's why I asked. Were you doing anything serious
exactly.
that I didn't know about?
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not sure you and I ever had a serious conversation. We were just laughing. But yeah, I didn't. I loved the writing part of it, and I loved. I didn't like the constraints of the truth and facts getting in the way of telling a story. But I was dating a girl, and I moved back home, and I went into sales, but I always went to movies. And I would, instead of, I'd have an appointment at 11 o'clock and an appointment at 4 o'clock. And I'd go to, if you remember the art theater, Fine Arts Theater down in the city,
Of course.
on Michigan.
Yeah.
And I would go there to watch a movie at 1 o'clock, and then go to a sales call at 4 o'clock. I just always did that and I loved it. And then one day, this girl I was dating, we went to go see a movie in Evanston. And when I got out of the movie called Brothers McMullen, and when I got out of the movie, I was like, Jesus, like this guy, it was Ed Burns. I'm like, that guy stole my life. Like, that's what I want to do. The guy wrote this personal story, blah, 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 blah. And she pretty much said to me at the time, she goes, the difference between you and Ed Burns is Ed Burns has balls. And there's a good Jewish girl from Deerfield. Who the hell is she to talk to me like that? And I was, we ended up getting married, and we decided at that point, after we got married, that we would move out to LA and, give this a shot. Give writing a shot. I felt like I had the talent, but looking back at it, I mean, stupid. It was really stupid, but the things you do in your 20s that are stupid, we just didn't feel like we had anything to lose. And so we moved out there in 97, and I toiled away getting production assistant jobs, stuff like that. And then the contest came around, and every amateur writer who had never sold anything knew about it. And back then it was when, it was dial up. It took like 4 or 5 hours to upload the script that I won with,
Amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And so
AOL. It was AOL.
AOL, there was like those ones where you get the hours free. You pick them up like at Blockbuster.
Yeah.
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 And so, yeah, I uploaded it and, I ended up winning the contest.
What's your thought, Pete? Like honestly, when they called you or texted, they didn't text you. That's not they called you. I'm sure back then.
Yeah,
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 you must have just been like felt like you won the lottery. I mean, that's a huge feeling.
yeah. Well, they had these events, and so they didn't call. It was there at the events, these live moments. But I do remember I didn't pass the background check, so they did the top 10, and I get a call from Damon Affleck and Chris Moore. As they've got the top 10 and now they did a police, background check on you. And they call and they're like, listen, we need to talk to you. There's something that happened here that got flagged and we want to make sure. And it was a prank that I did back at Deerfield High School, my senior year, senior pranks, and ended up getting arrested for, but there was no charges. So I had to tell them about how I broke into the school, I glued people's locks together, I outran the cops. The canine unit from Northbrook came to try to get me, and I went through a creek like Magnum PI, and I'm telling them this story, and they started howling.
They loved it.
When I'm telling it, I'm not telling it like this is something I'm really proud of. I'm scared that I'm going to get kicked out of this.
Of course.
And then they just start laughing, and I'm like, okay, great. They've got a sense of humor. They realize I didn't do anything, nefarious or wrong. And so, then we went through the contest, and I ended up winning it. And
how long did it take you to? So the movie, I think was it Stolen Summer?
It was Stolen Summer, yeah.
Okay, so how long did Stolen Summer take you to write?
I'd say probably about 3 months. I was working at the Roseanne show as an associate producer, which is another word for gopher. Okay. And I would come home, I had a little baby at the time, and then she goes to bed like 7 o'clock or so. And then it would hang out the wife a little bit. And then I wrote that script pretty much from about 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. for 3 months.
Was it something brewing in you from going to see Brothers McMullen? Was it something ish like that where the spirit of it is? I mean, I remember the movie. As the Irish Catholic themes and intimations of, rite of passage growing up.
Yeah. Yeah. Bruce Jenner is the decathlon winner.
Right.
Yeah.
But Pete, here's the thing. Is it weird? I mean, they knocked this door down for you. All of a sudden, you got a movie that's going to make it, that's going to get done.
Yep.
From what I remember, Brian Dennehy was in it. Yep. Bonnie Hunt is in it.
Yep. Kevin Pollak
was in it. There's legitimate people that are in this movie. It's got to be unbelievable to you.
Yeah. You know what? It was never one of those things where it just all happened so fast that I wasn't sitting around going, I can't believe this is happening, because I had a job to do. And I kind of sold these people that I could do the job. So it was a moment afterwards, or even looking back at it 30 years, 25 years ago, then it's like, wow, I can't believe that happened. But in the moment, there was just so much to do and so much I didn't know. And that was one of the things that I think, got me beat up on the TV show, but helped me with, the people that I worked with, was I wasn't trying to act like I knew what I didn't know.
Right.
I didn't. And to this day, still, I consider myself a writer. I know that. Everything else, when it comes to production, I need help.
Did Affleck and Damon, were they hands-on with the process, or not so much? Or
no, Matt was he was out in Europe shooting Born Identity, and Affleck, I can't remember what was going on with Ben, but I mean, they had my back the whole time. They were awesome. They were incredible. And it wasn't one of these like Hollywood things. Like, those guys, their friendship is real. Like, they really get along and have each other's back and all that stuff. It's not some Hollywood production of a friendship.
Right.
And their whole thing was they backed me the whole time. And, I was getting my head knocked in. And then, like, I couldn't get a hold of, we needed a budget. And finally I said, Ben, I go, does this normally take this long? And I was like, relax. By the way, he'd be like, relax, kid. Ben's 2 years younger than I, you know, and he'd be like, kid, I got it. Don't you worry. And boom, he'd
I
pull
love
up.
that.
Yeah. And he'd call an exec at Miramax. And the guy goes, hey, you called Harvey yesterday. And he goes, yeah. And he goes, you went over my head. And Ben's like, I went straight the fuck over your head. Like he was so cocky and so funny. But the whole time he had my back. It was just like, hey, just want to make the movie we said we would make.
So you've gone on now and done 4 more movies since then?
Yeah, 5. I don't know. You would think I would know this. Because you know what? There's so many movies that you work on that don't get made or you don't get credit for.
Well, don't feel weird. Don't feel weird. I'm going to give the audience something right now. In the coming weeks, we're going to have Bobby Weed on. Okay, the famous golf course architect Bobby Weed. And I went out in the last couple of weeks. He's doing a renovation in Tampa, and we'll go down this road. It has nothing to do with Pete, but that last part with Pete where he didn't really know how many movies he's done. I asked Bobby, spent about 2.5 hours with him doing his renovation. He was just taking me hole to hole, showing me basically the grist behind a golf course renovation. Hey, Bobby, how many new courses have you done in your illustrious career? I mean, this is a guy who's up there with Tom Fazio, Nugent, Donald Ross. If you know golf, those are all household names. Just like Pete. He said, I really don't know. And it gave me the feeling like I don't sit around and really count how many new golf courses I've done. If it took a wild guess, it'd be 25. Just a little bit of a precursor there. But so yours is, if you took a guess, it's 5.
Yeah. Let's see. There's Stone Summer. There's Outing Riley. There's Hall Pass. There's
Beer Run.
Beer Run, and there's Ricky Stanicki. So yeah, those are the 5 that got made with my name on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you done? So you moved back to Chicago from LA. So now, and I thought about this before we hit the record button. It feels like you're doing what Harold Ramis did, which is I don't want. That's a hell of a compliment because he's
no. Yeah, that's why. That's why I made that face. I mean, Harold Ramis is, and I'm
no. But from the standpoint of that, Harold wanted a normal life.
Yes,
to a lot of extent, from what I know, Bill Murray wanted the normal life, and where I'm going with that is that the normal life really is Chicago, commuting to LA. I don't want my kids part of the Paris Hilton, the nonsense, the fast life that is in Los Angeles, and I can easily get there from O'Hare.
Yes.
Have you basically commuted LA the last 20 years?
So pre-COVID, I was there a lot. I mean, it would be, 2 weeks, 3 weeks at a time, and then come home for a week and then go back for a couple of weeks when I was writing on a project. I was lucky enough to work with the Fairley brothers a lot, and Pete Fairley lives out in Ojai, California, and we'd do road trips. I'd go to Ojai. He's in out east in the summertime. So yeah, I was to the point where my kids used to, they'd be like, Daddy, you're never home, blah, 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 blah. And then COVID hits and I'm home a lot. And they're like, when the hell are you getting on the road? You're so annoying. So all this time they're like, oh, we wish Daddy was home. And then I'm home. They're like, oh God, this is awful.
Would you ever live in LA? But where I'm going with the Harold thing is that Ramis didn't really like LA. He liked doing movies, didn't like LA. Is that fair to say that that's a view kind of?
No, I loved LA. You find good people everywhere. I missed home. Like I said, I married a girl that I grew up with. So her family's here in Deerfield. My family's here in Deerfield. But when my oldest started kindergarten, my wife was a teacher at Brentwood School. And she said, we get automatic into the school, which I didn't know that was a big deal. And then for the first time ever, I asked her, I'm like, well, how much would it cost for kindergarten? And it's a private school, Brentwood School. And she goes, we get a 10% discount. And with the discount, it'll be about $19,000. $19,000 for kindergarten? Thumbs up, 7-up? Like, what? And so I said, why don't we just move back home? It's cheaper to live. Our family's there. Like my high school crew's there. I can just go be a jackass with the guys I grew up with.
Okay.
We really did like LA. It just wasn't home. you know. I didn't want my kids growing up to be Dodger fans. You know, I need them to be Cub fans. I know, in the scheme of things, that's small, but it mattered to me.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So one of our favorite topics on this show, and we just think, and you're the perfect person, you know where we're heading, is Bill Walters. Okay. I brought the show in by talking about how I did a show with Kevin Cook, the writer of the Titanic Thompson book. I don't know if you're familiar with Titanic Thompson, but the Titanic was really the precursor to Billy Walters. Sky Masterson from Guys and Dolls was written about basically Titanic Thompson.
Yep.
Incredible bigger than life character is Titanic Thompson. I really think Bill Walters is as big of a character, but for whatever reason, the world we live in, and I don't know why it is, because gambling's legal now. It'd be weird and taboo to talk about Bill. Man, there's a silence about this guy. And you throw the Mickelson piece into it, and it gets real quiet.
Yeah.
You take it from there. You got a project going.
Yeah, I've got a project going. Andrew Moscato is producer, Pete Fairley and Coleman Hedges, myself, Owen Wilson. And we got lucky enough. I had called Owen, I don't know, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, after the 60 Minutes. And I said to him, I go, there's this guy in Vegas.
Laura Logan.
Yeah, with Laura Logan, and which is a part of the script that we're writing. And I was like, this guy's incredible. Like, this guy's
It's insane, Pete.
There's not. The book's ridiculous.
Yeah, but he was like, because of all the, the illegalities of gambling, he was like a CIA agent, and everyone was wondering, is this a Billy Walters bet? Is this a Billy Walters bet? And then finally, he was not interested in telling his story back then. But a few years ago, he decided he's ready to tell his story. He wrote a book, and Fairley went out there and convinced him to give him the opportunity for us to go write the script. And getting on the inside, this guy, he's the smartest guy in the room, but he's also the street smartest guy in the room. And it's actually, I'll be honest with you, it's a little unnerving because, I'll say to him, I'll be like, hey, there's a 2-team, 3-team parlay that I love. And he basically just would look at me like, what? No, parlays are for suckers, and I'm just in there, I kind of like my little 2-team $50 parlay. It makes me happy. And there's a difference between being a jackass gambler like myself and being the sharp, the guy that would move lines if they had heard the rumor that Billy's on it. And with Billy being a CIA agent, sometimes he would push that rumor so the line would move so he could go the other way. But a fascinating guy. And then it becomes personal. It's the story of all the legendary things that he did can't fit the movie. That's one of the things we're having a problem with. But he's got this love story with his wife, Susan, who is just the sweetest woman and they were partners. Like, she was really good with numbers. And it's a fascinating story, and I hope we can get it made.
So you've obviously read the book.
Oh yeah.
I'd be you if I could be you, as far as if I could pick one project and I worked in Hollywood, which one I do would be easily the one we're talking about right now. Easily. Yeah. I think it's fascinating on a million different fronts. I think it shows America in a different light. It shows America how it has progressed from the standpoint of gambling and how uncomfortable America is with where we are now.
Yeah.
It's the anti-Bill Walters, meaning you turn on the TV and you see DraftKings and FanDuel commercials left and right, pushing teasers, pushing parlays. That's not gambling. That's Russian roulette.
Yeah.
Okay, that, and unfortunately, again, this is for a different time podcast, but anybody who's ever been in a game knows that's Russian roulette. That's not. Those are completely advantageous to the house. It's not how Bill Walters ever bet. Blah 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 blah. Set up your account, put in a teaser, away we go. It's idiotic.
Yes.
Bill Walters, I don't think has bet one teaser in his life, but
no,
his story can make you uncomfortable, and I think you've got a tough job discerning where to go with this story because, the knee jerk is to play up the Mickelson story and the Mickelson piece.
Yeah.
I think the hard way is to go with the early days and how a Bill Walters comes to fruition, how we get to Bill post prison from Bill as a 8-year-old running the streets of Kentucky. It is a really, this guy's a heavy topic.
I think I can say that Billy would say that the difference for him was he stopped drinking. And alcohol.
He almost got killed multiple times in gambling context. I mean, there's that story in the book about him winning big money at, forgive me, I actually know, I think it's Binion's, and he wins the money at Binion's and they don't want to pay him, and he causes a huge scene because he is drunk out of his mind, and they chase him into 2 casinos over with a gun. Jack Binion's son. These are serious stories. And they tell Bill to go out to the back door because he's going to get killed.
Yeah. And the same thing, with Spilatro wanting, a piece of his business.
That's an incredibly interesting part of it.
Yeah. And so Billy realizes that a piece of the business means he's done.
The picks.
And so, in the middle of the night, he and Susan, sneak out of Vegas and, go live anonymously in Kentucky until Spilatro's, found in a cornfield like 9 months, a year later.
Where do you fall, Pete, on the Mickelson story? Was it is Phil the true scumbag that he's painted out to be by Billy, or is Phil completely a fool if he does show up to court because he's then linked inextricably, his brand is linked inextricably to Bill Walters, a ne'er-do-well of society, no matter how you want to paint it?
You know what, and this isn't me dodging it, because we don't focus on it really, hardly at all. It's just sort of a blip because we're dealing with more of Billy Walters, the greatest gambler that ever lived. And this is later in his stock years, when he, with stocks, and that was with Dean Foods and Phil Mickelson, and whether he gave inside information to Phil or not. The one spot I do fall on is that, in my opinion, Phil just had to come out and say, Billy did not give me the inside information. Everything that I've looked at, I just feel like he could have come in and just said, hey, as a friend, there's something to do. I know lawyers get involved and they say, hey, just even showing up as a friend, this guy's going to jail anyway. All you're doing is putting yourself in harm's way. But I personally feel like, and I don't mean to be preachy, I think the honorable thing would have been for Phil to come in and just say, hey, I can't talk about this, I can't talk about this, but Billy, this is what happened, this is what Billy told me. I don't consider that to be insider trading. If you guys do, then so be it. Yeah. I just think I kind of like it's those, profiles in courage. I feel like Phil could have stepped up at that moment. Billy's going to go to jail. But I'm talking out both sides of my ass because I don't know the real details other than, what I've read independently, what I've read in Billy's book. And I'll tell you, one of the key things to Billy's redemption is the ability, his thing to get over that, because it bothered him deeply, just also the whole situation. And I think he finally just woke up one day when he was in prison. It's just like, okay, that's all that's happened. All I can do now is just go forward. And that's an impressive part about him. But yeah, we don't deal with it too much because it's it would turn into a 4-hour movie because there's so many incredible things to talk about when it comes to Billy Walters.
Pete, there's so much you could give him credit for on the philanthropy.
Yes, correct.
The amount of money that this guy has raised for philanthropy is insane.
Yeah.
We don't know people that have given this kind of money, short of Tiger Woods, to philanthropic endeavors like Bill Walters, but it's never going to get to the front page because, again, there's a dark side story to this guy. Nobody wants to take that journey about how he is truly a philanthropic. I didn't say he's a good man. I'm being very serious. I didn't say that. You can tell I've definitely done my homework on this topic. I didn't say he was a good man. I'm conflicted on that. I'm not going to try to make him into the Pope that just passed. Yeah, I'm not going to do, but I'm also going to call a spade from the standpoint of he is a philanthropist.
Yeah, no, he definitely is, especially when he got out of jail. Like he's got this second chance thing that I saw in Las Vegas, giving, felons another shot at, life and work and that kind of stuff. And it moved me to tears. There's a story about this cop and this gang member and so on and forth. And it's another one of those, as it's happening in my head, I'm going, how do I turn this into a story? But yeah, I mean, he's lived so many lifetimes.
Is he a good person? I mean, I know it's a very tough question. I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot. I mean, that doesn't mean he's a bad person, but I mean, look, he's very open in his book. I mean, he's got some shadiness to him, that's some toughness to him that is, I don't know. Where do you fall on is he a good person? You have to say yes, because he was a philanthropist. And
and also, again, it's hard for me to say someone's a good person, not a good person,
Who am I? Right.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the reason why I get uncomfortable, the old, throw stones at glass houses. I think he's a scary guy because he's so freaking smart that whenever he asks a question, he already knows the answer. So, I'm telling his story and he knows it so much better than we do, even as the writers, that I will have to say to him, hey, listen, for dramatic purposes, this is what we're looking to do with your character in this scene with this.
How does that go?
And as soon as I speak about it in something that I know, when I get away from it, the gambling part of it, and I get to the questions about character and arc, and, listen, you're Billy Walters, a human being, but you're also right now, for me, Billy Walters, his character. He's incredible at that. Like I'll say to him, I'll say, hey, listen, this scene's kind of playing flat. And we need it, to be a little bit more action and tension than maybe it was, and when you tell him that, then he's like, oh, okay, well, let me tell you what happened then. I knew this guy was cheating. And you're like, what? No. And he's like, yeah, like when he talks about guys that he would play cards with that they knew he was cheating, Billy wouldn't tell them that he knows they're cheating because he could still beat them when they were cheating. And those people were evergreens because they would keep coming back because they're thinking, I'm cheating. I'm going to beat this guy. And Billy's like, I know you're cheating. Therefore, you won't be able to beat me. And I won't say anything because I want your money. That's like fascinating.
I mean, he's in the American pantheon of this topic. It's Minnesota Fats, it's Titanic Thompson, it's Billy Walters. I mean, that we're going to the Mount Rushmore of who these guys were. And really, Walters is a much bigger whale than those other guys I just mentioned. I mean, games are insane. They are.
And he's got a crew of guys that, Billy Baxter and, what's his name? Doyle Brunson. They were partners in the gambling. But I mean, these guys are the legends of Vegas at a time when, they were villains. They were the anti-hero. Nowadays, those guys would be celebrated. They'd be having their own shows and stuff. But back then, they had to battle with the FBI and,
the Chicago outfit.
Yeah, and they were the not the felons, but they were like the shady part of the south side of Chicago, back alleys. And now it's very corporate. And that, like you said, the thing that's fascinating about him is sort of like the story of how they did the movie Casino, about how it used to be this little thing and then it became corporate. And that's how Billy's story goes also. It's a similar arc.
I love that movie for exactly what you just said. Is I think your movie is probably going to dovetail that movie in a certain sense. Ace Rosenthal, who Casino obviously was about, the De Niro character. Vegas sports books aren't run by that. We talked about this earlier with the FanDuel and the DraftKings on every other commercial. Everything's run by computer now. Everything's run by as it should be. Back then, those guys actually set lines manually with pen and paper. And Roxy Roxborough and Sonny Vaccaro, and there's names out there, Ace Rosenthal, they were part of the amalgam that was the Vegas sports book. The Stardust was the first line every week in the NFL. They created the line. Therein lies an edge for somebody who truly is sharp like Bill Walters.
Yeah.
Now you bring computers into it, which Bill was really the pioneer of bringing what then became called the computer group.
Correct.
That's the group that he was linked with.
Yeah. And he was all about.
That's an edge. That's an edge. That's an edge. Now we're talking about.
I mean, the story of, back then you didn't have. There was, like you said, no internet. There was no way of knowing things, and he decided to pay the people at the airports to give him the sports pages, because people from New York and Philly and Phoenix and Dallas were flying in, and they were reading the paper, and he would get the cleanup crews to get him the papers so he could read the local sports to get information that Vegas didn't have, that the books didn't have. And you could have local information that would tell you about an injury, and we didn't have national sports news. And so Billy would be able to handicap based on information he had that he worked hard to get that the others didn't have.
This episode of Taking It to the Streets is brought to you by Wrightwood Medical, the leader in used and refurbished medical equipment. Wrightwood specializes in ultrasound equipment, but can also be your vendor of choice when sourcing lower cost alternatives for your operating room suites, scanning the entire medical spectrum. From single physician offices to larger hospitals, Wrightwood is the lower cost solution for your everyday medical equipment needs, and all of Wrightwood's equipment comes with warranty. You can reach Wrightwood directly at www.wrightwoodmedical.com. That is with a W, WRIGHTWOOD medical, or 773-848-7100. Again, 773-848-7100. If it's used medical equipment, it's Wrightwood Medical.
This goes into conversations we have during football season when we talk about betting and betting on games. One of the big takeaways from the gambling standpoint that Bill talks about in his books, to Pete's point, understanding the value of information and how it works in your favor or against you. Okay. Yep. The overvaluation, inflation of a number versus the deflation of a number. Also understanding key numbers, understanding the difference between 2.5 and 3, understanding the difference between 6.5 and 7, difference between 9.5 and 10, difference between the overvaluation if the starting quarterback is sitting and what you're going to get on the backup quarterback. You're also going to get a different game plan. So I always talk about Deshaun Watson with Cleveland. He sits. Now Jacoby Brissett's out there. Guess what, folks? It's not the same game plan you're getting with Jacoby Brissett starting versus Deshaun Watson. Jacoby's just going to be handing the ball off, grinding the clock away, and we're going to probably give you 3 points more than we give you if Deshaun's out there. Just a little side note there. But Bill was really big on understanding those the game within the game. Is that correct, Pete?
Yeah. And Billy, he barely graduated high school. And if he had grown up where we grew up, Deerfield, Northbrook, Winnetka, he had grown up in those areas, Hound Park, he would have gone to MIT.
Right.
He has that kind of brain. He grew up in Kentucky, and instead of doing schoolwork, he was.
He's Raylan Givens from Justified.
Yeah. Oh my God. By the way, it's maybe his favorite show, Justified, because he's
our English cream golden retriever sitting right here. His name is Raylan, and he was named after Raylan Givens.
That's fantastic. Yeah, and Billy's like, they got it. That's how we talk in Kentucky.
Harlan County.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, he that's his favorite show. It's one of my favorite shows.
It's an amazing show. Amazing show. What's your favorite show these days? Give me some help the viewers out there if they're searching for something that you really like.
Let's see. I'm on episode 8 of Andor for second season. It's good. The first season I thought was great.
Okay.
What have I been watching? You know what? I watch so much stuff I can't even.
Pete, are you one of these Hollywood types that?
Hollywood types, right there. I'm in trouble.
I know. That is vindictive that the cinema is going by the wayside in exchange for streaming. And I heard Quentin Tarantino on Howard Stern, and boy, he's got, he's not happy, obviously, with it going towards streaming versus the cinema. I think COVID obviously was a death knell for the cinema. As we know, you're dropping the fine arts on Michigan Avenue, places like that probably don't exist anymore.
Fine arts.
Penny on Lincoln Avenue. You get the point. But How do you feel about that? Can't the artistic still be expressed even if it's on Netflix versus the cinema?
Absolutely. I'm what Quentin Tarantino's doing and what I'm doing are totally different. Quentin Tarantino is, the man, and his movies have to be seen, in my opinion. Yeah, like
on the big screen.
yeah, like if Quentin did a movie that was for Netflix, I'd be disappointed because to me, Quentin Tarantino's an event, and I will pay top dollar on Friday night to go see a Quentin Tarantino movie. There's not a lot of people, especially like you said after COVID, it's almost like a habit got broken, and there's not a lot of movies where I'm like, I got to go see that movie, and I'll just wait for it to come on the streaming. And there's a whole bunch of movies. Also, internationals opened up. I've become a psycho for like Nordic noir movies and TV shows. And I don't mean this like an artsy way. Like some of these things are just popcorn, but thoroughly enjoyable. So there's just so much to watch and to consume. And as someone at my level of writing, the fact that it's opened up and there's more opportunities that Amazon, Netflix, Hulu, it helps someone like me. Where Quentin Tarantino, truthfully, he doesn't need any of that. It's as long as there's movies being made, he's that good that they're lining up to make his movies.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I'm not a writer, but I just think it's still great. And I like the story. Yellowstone was awesome. Yellowstone was incredible. And sure, but it's too long. You wouldn't, I mean, what was it going to be? A 10-hour movie? If you would have seen it at a cinema, you needed it to be chopped up into the streaming.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it allows for the thing that I love about TV now versus when we grew up is when we grew up, it was like 22, 24, 26 episodes in a season. Magnum PI was something I loved in the early 80s, middle 80s. But every episode wasn't great because those writers had to churn stuff out. And now with streaming, you're looking at seasons of 6 episodes, 8 episodes, 10, maybe 12. And they're able to really, Breaking Bad is an incredible story. One of the reasons it's great is they didn't bastardize it by stretching it out to 24 episodes a season for 5 years. They did 8 episodes a season. What's it? The advertising TV show.
Mad Men.
Mad Men. Another Mizzou guy, John Hamm.
Yeah.
He was a year younger than us.
I was going to ask you, is that what? So give just a little name dropping with Mizzou. John Hamm, was he a Sigma Chi at Mizzou?
No, he was a Sigma Nu, which was just underneath the SAE house.
On College Road, Fraternity Road.
No, he was so Sigma Nu. We if you remember SAE, we're up on that hill off of 24 East Stewart. It was our address, and they were just underneath. I think it was Sigma Nu that was just underneath us, and I believe that's what he was.
A Sigma Brad Pitt was a Sigma Chi. He's older than us.
Yes, he's never returned any of my calls.
Interesting. That's what I'm going with that. So you reached out and played the Mizzou card.
No.
The Mizzou Mafia, and it didn't work.
Yeah, no. I didn't reach out to Brad, but I mean, it would be the first thing I'd say to him if I met him. Hey, Mizzou, and he'd just be like, "Yeah, okay, move along."
Very exactly. Sheryl Crow.
Sheryl Crow. No, I've never met Sheryl.
Again, she's about Brad Pitt's age, right? She was a Theta in Missouri.
Yes, she was right
across from our house. I was an ATO. Who? It's across from our house. From
Oh yeah, right. Oh yeah.
Right on Richmond. Yeah, and those are some big hitters, and they're all Mizzou people.
Oh yeah. I mean, there was who else is there? Spielberg's wife, Mizzou.
Who's that?
Steven Spielberg's wife. She was in the second Raiders of the Lost Ark. Kate Capshaw.
She's from Missouri.
Yeah. Oh, she went to Mizzou. Yeah.
Interesting. So going on,
I might be making stuff up though. Who knows? No, but I'm pretty sure Kate Capshaw was Mizzou also.
So give me a couple of the shows, Pete, that you like right now that you're watching.
I don't know why I'm having a hard time. All right, I'm watching on HBO The Last of Us. I thought the first season was terrific. They out in the second season.
Yeah.
What else is there? I'm just going through Max.
Are you a Yellowstone guy? Are you a Mayor of Kingstown guy? Are you a
I was so first of all, that guy, that writer, his movie, Hell or High Water,
okay?
one of my favorite movies of the last 20 years.
Okay.
That's an incredible movie. He also did Wind River, incredible movie. Yellowstone, I really liked it for the first year. It got too soapy for me. Everything just became soapy, like that redhead who's beautiful. I love that the character. She just kept walking into rooms like she was John Wayne.
Right, right, right.
And like so, it got a little too soapy for me. Oh, it was
You're
great.
talking about Tyler Sheridan, the guy who wrote
Yeah, he's incredible.
Taylor Sheridan, I think, or
Taylor Sheridan, his movies, and I mean, for me to critique the guy, like he's got his own genre now. He's got 5 shows, so
he's
God
incredible.
bless him. Yeah, and he was one of these guys who was an actor, just couldn't get the parts he wanted, and turned to writing, and is incredibly talented.
Yeah.
I mean, Hell or High Water. If you haven't seen that one, it's terrific.
I haven't.
Yeah, it's great. The bank robbery in Texas. But let's see. The one on Paramount Plus, The Agency, really, really good. Oh, The Jackal on Peacock, another The Day of the Jackal, or do they just call it The Jackal? It's based on the movie Day of the Jackal, which was then remade with Bruce Willis and Richard Gere, is it maybe? Anyway, it's terrific on Peacock. That's 10 episodes. They did a great job. The Agency was like, Agency, instead of like being this big spy show, they kind of went really personal, like the ins and outs of actually being a spy.
Okay.
That was terrific. And that was based on a French show. And now I'm really nerding out, which is called The Bureau. And that was 5 or 6 seasons of French show, which was incredible.
Okay.
That was outstanding. So if you like the spy genre, that's great. There's again, me being nerdy here, I apologize. I would have got beat up in college for talking this nerdy, and I would have deserved it for one reason or another. There's a show called Border Town about this genius detective in Sweden, or is it Norway, or is the border of Norway and Sweden? And he's sort of like the Dr. House of detective work. And he's got this little memory castle that he builds to figure things out. Anyway, it's terrific. It's probably 6 episodes for 3 seasons or something.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the Gemstones. I love, anything that he does. I'm a huge fan of. What's his name? From Eastbound and Down, Danny McBride.
Yeah.
He owns this sort of arrogant, toxic masculinity, but it's really vulnerable.
Yeah.
But he's putting up this front, and he's able to do it. Like, it's unbelievably funny, but you also start kind of feeling for the dude.
Yeah.
And says shit that we wish we could say in real life.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, I love Danny McBride stuff.
I love that stuff too. So before I let you go, Pete, what, with regard to the Bill Walters movie, is there a time frame of when you want to have this thing out in public?
I mean, yeah, and Billy wants it done yesterday. It's right now. So the business side of getting things done is, so we wrote the script. It's a long script because it's trying to get all this stuff. And we probably didn't do the best job of, it's like 155, 160 pages, which, a page a minute. So that comes out to a 160-minute movie. And so so then the process then on a movie like that's big, it's so big and it's cradle to grave, is getting an actor that the studios will say, okay, we will pay for this movie because we've got this actor. And so that process has been, as you can imagine, you go to whoever the A-list people are, the Ryan Goslings, the I don't even, Bradley Cooper's, the Mark Wahlbergs,
John Hamm.
Yeah. John Hamm. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's too clean cut. He's too clean cut to play that role, but just someone of that ilk is probably.
Yeah. And so you've got to get those people, and the whole town, the whole world's throwing stuff at these actors. And so getting someone to say yes it takes a while.
I hope they don't make you guys sanitize that story, because it really is such a gritty tale.
You know what? No, they won't. People have notes and studios have notes, and you got to figure out at a certain point where you got to draw the line. It kind of helps that we've got Billy Walters, because Billy's not going to let us sanitize it because it's his life, and he's not going to want some soft movie about his life.
I don't think so.
No, and I would be scared if that happened, because he would kick my ass.
Or have somebody that knew Spilotro do it.
Yeah, no, Billy's a hands-on guy. He would, at his age today, he'd be able to.
How much golf does he play a week, would you say, these days? Is he out there every day?
You know what? So he had some wrist or hand surgeries.
So he's not playing every day.
He has not.
I heard he's great, Pete.
I heard he's like 2 handicap kind of great. Like he can hold his own with.
He's senior PGA guys.
I talked to people that played with him, and the thing that kept coming back, and lost money to him, that kept coming back to me was Billy is as good as Billy has to be
to beat you.
Wow.
So
they play possum with you.
Yeah. Well, no, he says he's not playing possum. It's just his game can go up or go down. He's not cheating or anything. He's got his handicap. But if someone has a 2 handicap, he finds a way to beat that person. If someone's a 10 handicap, he won the Pro-Am.
Yes. Controversially, because they thought that he was sandbagging his handicap.
Yeah. And we went through the stuff with him on the golf course, and he wasn't sandbagging it.
It's called. Yeah. I'm sorry. The handicap is based on your 10 last rounds. That's what he would, I'm sure, fall back on. It's true. It's your last 10 rounds. So yeah. I can shoot. In Billy's case, he's going to shoot anywhere between 74 and 79. That's the deal. You caught him the rounds where he probably shot 73, 72. That doesn't really make you a sandbag. That means you had a good day.
Yeah. By the way, that section of the book itself, of when they talk about they bring the golfers to Vegas, and have that, and it's incredible. The amount of money that's going on there. And again, you go ahead, try to sandbag it. These guys are experts. They know,
of course,
what you are. But yeah, hearing those stories, it's just like, I go out to the Deerfield Public Golf Course for a couple bucks, and these guys, they got $100,000 on the hole.
Of course. Before we let you go, Pete, give me a story in your brain after the Billy Walters that you want to do, or that will be done, or is thinking about being done.
Well, I'm also working on that's actually going to. I told you about Duran Duran.
No.
Oh, yeah, I'm doing a TV show with Duran Duran, with Amazon MGM, and
Hungry Like the Wolf.
Yeah, Rio. It's awesome.
So what are you doing with Duran Duran?
So I don't know if you're up against time here or not, but
we lost the time clock about a half hour ago, man.
All right, fantastic. So Duran Duran, we came up with this idea, the stupidest idea in the world. A good buddy of mine from Project Greenlight, the guy who was the first AD, a guy named Bruce Terrace. He's one of my closest friends. Awesome dude, great writer, Chicago guy. And we went to Duran Duran with this idea of, they had made the Elton John movie, and they had made, the Queen movie. And we're like, listen, you could go do your typical biopic movie, about this is how you guys started and this is where you are. Or we've got an idea that's a little bit different. And our idea was, everybody knows that England and the United States back in 1981, Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan came together to take down the USSR. What you don't know is they couldn't have done it without Duran Duran. So it's a complete made up thing. So the idea was back in the 80s, there was a guy in the USSR, in the KGB, that could figure out the spies, the Western spies, by their cover stories. He'd be able to figure it out, and he'd kill them. So MI6 came up with this idea of, instead of having, spies and giving them a cover story, what if we have people that live the cover story and teach them how to be spies? And the pilot program is Duran Duran.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So interesting.
So we said to them, we want to tell your story. The true story of Duran Duran is the band, and how you made the music, and the rise and the fall. They're Birmingham, England. But we're going to set it in this hyper fictionalized world where you guys are spies. We're not playing it like the Monkees. We're playing it like the Americans.
Right.
And they loved it. They loved it. They were,
Amazing.
And Duran Duran specifically, I'm not just saying this because we're doing with them, because there was a time when we weren't sure if we were doing with them, and the studio came to us and said, who else would you think of as a band? And we're like, nobody. It's Duran Duran. Because they had a music at that time in Birmingham, there was a lot of unemployment in the 80s. There was high inflation. It was shit. And people were writing about the music of the time that they were living in, and it was depressing. And Duran had this idea of, can we make music about aspirations, about, a world like Rio, which is so much fun, it's a gloomy world. And we thought they're perfect for this. And that they're still relevant today,
Right.
So Duran came in and they said, yes, we love this. So dealing with John Taylor and Roger Taylor and Simon Le Bon and Nick Rhodes. And hopefully we can start shooting that sometime next year.
Amazing.
Yeah, we're working on the scripts right now. It's a TV
cool.
show. But it's really a lot of fun, especially because, you and I of that age, those songs were, the soundtrack of our teenage, our folk.
It was the new wave kind of era. I don't know if you remember when we were growing up, Channel 44, where the Sox played in the 70s.
On TV.
Yeah, well, this is the normal. So it was Channel 44 had MV3 was the name of the show. It's the kind of precursor to MTV. And you would see these bands like Duran Duran, Madness, the Johnson Crew, Devo.
Oh, yeah.
Groups like that were that genre, and they were incredible.
Oh, yeah. And then you remember it then became mainstream. We had Friday night videos.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. I mean, for those of us who couldn't get dates,
Right.
we were home watching Friday night.
Of course.
Yeah.
Pete, this was incredible, man.
Andy, it was great to talk to you. Great to see you.
Absolutely, boss. We'll do this again.
All right. Fantastic.
All right, boss. Goodbye from St. Pete. And remember, folks, you're only as good as your last trade. So never too high, never too low, till we meet again.